This episode of GatherGeeks is sponsored by Leo Events. The impact of live events is undeniable, but for now, the destination is digital. While Leo Events can plan and produce virtual events alongside any credible platform provider, the agency developed an exclusive proprietary platform that is proven, customizable, and ready to deploy. Learn more at leoevents.com.
Are you okay, so we're gonna be
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here's your host, BizBash chairman and founder, David Adler.
Today our guest is Jim Louderback, the general manager of VidCon. It's the world's leading event that is also a platform for digital creators and their fans. Last year, they had over 75,000 attendees and 120 brand exhibitors. It's the place where these creators gather to meet, learn, and promote. Jim's going to talk about how his brand made huge pivots this year to serve his audience in a virtual way, and they even cracked the code on engagement by unleashing innovation that is light years ahead of the more traditional virtual platforms. It just so happens that he is dealing with the next generation of event attendees, so he's got a beat on what's coming. Today, my co-host is going to be our BizBash executive editor, Claire Hoffman, who also recently interviewed Jim. But we started the conversation talking about how at a small socially distanced dinner party last week, my friend Christian Connor created this video of cutting a fancy cake with a glass from this great place called Milk Bar. And he uploaded it onto TikTok. He never had an account. And the first timer in less than 24 hours had 1 million views and 120,000 likes. It was totally bewildering. And since Jim is the VidCon guy, I was searching for answers. Let's take a listen.
So a friend of mine posted something on TikTok the other day. And he did this thing where he took a glass and he popped it down in a cake and created this cut of cake out of glass. He got 1 million views in 3 days. That is insane.
And that's part of the beauty of TikTok is that you don't have to be a big influencer to get a lot of views. If it goes in and people start to watch it, their algorithm is such that if people start to watch it and watch it over and over again, it'll start sharing it with more people. And TikTok is also expanding beyond just obviously lip syncing, and food is one of the areas, and DIY is one of the areas they're leaning into. So you probably hit the algorithm just right with something that's also repeatable, because I can imagine you want to look at it over and over again. And yeah, it's pretty wild. My TikTok videos have not done that yet.
It's so funny how with these TikTok videos, they analyze every little word too in the comments. There's 10,000 comments on 1 million views.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's great. He should build on that and become a TikTok influencer.
How much does it take to be a TikTok influencer? Do they have certain, I guess there's an algorithm there too in terms of.
I don't know, but if he keeps on doing fun videos and people keep on watching.
He did one video, first one he did. It's
wow. Something to build on.
Anyway, VidCon. We just want to know the who, what, when, where, and why. And we want to understand, what is it? I just did a podcast yesterday or 2 days ago on esports. Esports is unbelievable what's going on with that.
Yeah.
And how it's impacting venues and events and everything else. And they seem to have the whole Gen Z consumer market already wrapped up. And it seems like what you're doing, you're part of that. You're adjacent to all of that. And what is going on?
Look, what is VidCon is a much longer question, but talking about like esports and Gen Z, yes, they have a part of it locked up, but esports tends to shift a little bit more male, right? Apart from the Among Us and AOC and other people playing there, it definitely skews male. And what we do at VidCon, because we bring in top creators from around the world and we bring in their fans to celebrate the connections in the communities, it doesn't skew completely female, but we're more like 60% teen girls and 40% teen guys. So there is still room for stuff that's not esports to reach to this audience.
Yeah. I was at Primedia for 10 years. I don't know if VidCon was not really.
I was at Ziff Davis for 12 or 15 years.
Oh, you were at Ziff Davis. Okay.
Editor-in-chief PC Magazine, Windows Sources, PC Week. Yeah.
So
I know Primedia.
so you're another person from media magazines going into events.
Oh, ink stained wretch right here. That's me.
Oh my God, that's great. We own Tiger Beat.
Yep. That's awesome.
And that was sports for girls.
Right.
I don't know if it's still the case. I don't know if what's replaced that in terms of the
Teen Vogue, Tiger Beat, Awesomeness, which is one of our sister brands at Viacom CBS. They do a really interesting news thing every day. All those kind of feed into that. We Are the Unicorns is one of them out there too. So there's a bunch of them. Just Jared. I could go on and on.
You go on. Bob Pittman was a good friend of mine. And he was, of course, MTV when he started. And he said that it's not really about the technology or the conference or all that. It's about the attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree with that at all. It's sort of like is it the technology in combination with the attitude?
I think attitude is a good way to put it. I think you have to have a strong point of view with any particular editorial property, and events are no different. When we think about VidCon, it's really around the changing face of media, democratizing the creative economy, and that anybody like your friend who wants to lean into and build an audience on one of these digital video platforms can do it. You don't have to go to a gatekeeper. You don't have to go to Bob Pittman if you want to get a column in a magazine.
Right.
You can just do your blog, do your vlog, do your video. And if you're good or you make a glasses cake on TikTok, you can get views.
I'm interested in how, as an editor of a magazine, how you view events and how did you approach the programming of an event in a similar way that you're programming a magazine and pacing it, and whether it's a trade magazine or consumer magazine, it doesn't matter. You're trying to make it an entertainment, something that makes people interested and engaged.
When I was editor-in-chief of magazines, I always looked at magazines of a melange of different things, right? You want to have touchstones that drive people in. It might be a columnist, like John Dvorak was one of our top columnists on PC Magazine. People loved and hated John, but they would read to see what John had to say. We had the first looks where we would look at new products. We'd look at new desktop computers or notebooks or phones. We'd have broad comparison reviews, just all these different things and you knew that any one reader wouldn't like all of them. But the hope was that there was such a different pastiche and melange of things that your readers would keep reading because there were things that they really loved, and then they'd run into things that they didn't know, but perhaps would develop an affinity for. When I think about events and Vid in particular, it's very similar. At VidCon, we bring in 350 or 400 of the top creators in the world. Some are gamers, some are beauty vloggers, some are DIYers, some are news, there are a lot of range of different types of creators. And we do different types of sessions. Some appeal to lovers of animation. Some are more on the mental health side. We do things that help creators build their audiences, get famous on TikTok, build their Instagram connections. And we do things on the industry side as well. And the idea there is that as any one attendee, you're not going to love everything and you're not going to know everything, but you'll come for the things you love. And if we build enough of a great experience around it, not only will you find maybe new creators that you like or new wisdom that you can take back to the office, but also because as events are very much of a social experience and a community experience, you'll meet other people like you that'll either become your best friends or business partners or something else. And so the way that you craft a magazine with all those different pieces and departments and things makes sense to us editors. The readers are like just reading things and, oh, I like this. They probably don't glom onto the same labels we do. But I think content-wise for an event, we think about VidCon in the same way.
The structure.
And the diversity.
I took the NYU magazine publishing course back a long time ago. And the first assignment was create the personality of the magazine. If the magazine was a person, who would it be? So VidCon, what is it?
It's interesting that VidCon, because we're 3 events in one, we're 3 different personas wrapped into one. So in one sense, we are that teen girl or guy who is passionate about online video creators, loves a particular group of creators, and really wants to not only get closer to those creators, but validate that love they have of these creators and then tell the world about it. So We are an event for fans of online video creators and the communities there, where you can come and see those creators perform and do selfies and meet and greets with them and connect with other people who like them just like you. So that's one. On the second side, it's more I'm a creator. I want to make videos. I want to make art. I want to reach audiences. I want to build things around my creative process. And so our creator track, where we teach people how to do that, sort of for that person who's probably a little bit older, but really exploring their own creative outlets and developing that across whether it's TikTok or YouTube or Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest or LinkedIn or whatever. And then I think the third person, that third persona, is probably the 35-year-old media or online video professional who realizes that this is such a new way to do media in such an exciting area, and that big businesses can be built on it. So somebody who is coming in and saying, I'm going to be able to either start a new company or start a division of the existing company or work with creators to build something really lasting from a business perspective.
But it started as a B2B, right?
No, it started 10 to 11 years ago. A couple of online video creators early on, Hank and John Green, realized that as this industry was being built, we needed an event to bring the industry together. So it was 1,400 people at the basement of the Hyatt in Century City, but it was very much a fan event. So fans of these online video creators came, but also all of the people building things, the online video world came. I was that third persona I talked about. I was building an online video network called Revision 3 at the time. And we came, I spoke, I sponsored, and I was in awe of all of the great creators that were there, and then all of the fans that were there. And this is 2010, and we were changing the world of media right there across the street from CAA, and they had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. So Claire has a bunch of questions. Do you want to start going, Claire?
You told us a bit about what VidCon looked like. How many people did it have in person in 2019? Just so we can compare.
2019, we had about 75,000 across all three tracks.
Okay. And yeah, you and I chatted earlier this summer about the super innovative ways you were bringing it to virtual. You went for a whole summer-long series, and I know you have some exciting updates since then. For our listeners, can you walk us through how this virtual shift happened?
Sure, yeah. And because we've been talking about magazines, because I know David will relate to this, David, you and I, and Claire, I know you've seen this too. We've seen a lot of digital transitions of analog businesses, right? And so I think when we all had to stop doing events in March of this year, we took a look at VidCon and said, we still want to engage our audiences. We still want to connect with each of the three sort of audiences that we have. We don't want to just go out and just Cowpath our existing analog experience in a digital wrapper. So we didn't want to do 3 days of 70 Zoom calls and call it a year, because nobody wants that now. By the way, we all have Zoom fatigue now. Nobody really wants that. So we started thinking about what can we lean into the strengths of digital? Can we pull the best parts of a face-to-face event into digital and translate it there? So rather than doing that like 3 days of an event, let's do it all summer. So we did 13 weeks. We did 10 to 15 sessions a week. We built an online community where people could connect with each other. We built ways for people to kind of interact with each other as we were doing our sessions. And we leaned into some of the best parts about VidCon: education, connection, really intimate experiences with creators, and then unexpected ways for creators in the industry to come together, and just started experimenting online and built that out.
So what worked when you experimented and what didn't?
We looked at a lot of different technologies. Some of the things that didn't work, we were looking for a way to really get communities together. And we had a platform that didn't really do exactly what we wanted to do. We initially started doing the sort of back-end production using Zoom, and quickly ran into the limitations of Zoom. And then within a few weeks, it moved to a more robust platform that allowed us to, but we weren't making television, but we did want to make sure it was a good experience where we could bring in Q&A and chat and interactive elements that Zoom just does not have. And some of the stuff that worked, I didn't think meet and greets would work. But the idea that you're going to go and validate that love of a creator and be able to give them a hug and take a selfie and show that to the world, how are we going to do that digitally? But we ran into an app called Chatalize that actually let us do the same sort of thing where, yes, you as a fan are not physically sharing a space with a creator and getting a hug or having a conversation. But because you can do it via your phone and do it digitally and still get that picture and that video of your experience you can share, it had the same depth of experience for both creators and for the fans. So I was surprised, but that worked really well.
And then you integrated it into the platform that you used, I assume.
Well, we integrated onto our website. We didn't really have a platform, but we built a platform using a display layer using Maestro, which actually turns out is used by now other events. I was a speaker at PetCon a couple weeks ago, and they were using Maestro too, and I loved it because I was like, "Ooh, I'm learning from you about ways you're doing things that we need to know how to do." The Chatalize, the meet and greet stuff, we actually didn't integrate into our platform. A meet and greet is a very private affair, so it's not something you want to share with other people. And so it was more of a register through our platform. We'll connect you, and then we will connect you up to this app. You'll get it and you'll go through the experience.
I see.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I thought it was so interesting. You had told me earlier that you let your team learn as you go. We talked the first couple of weeks and you were like, hey, this may look very different in a few months. Do you feel like you guys changed a lot over the couple months that you did this?
We did. Some stuff we stopped doing because it just wasn't working, like using Zoom and things like that. And we started leaning more into the things that the audience really liked. I didn't go out and hire production companies to do this. I took physical event producers and we broke our event team into 4 pods and said, okay, here are the tools we're using. We're going to train you on them, and then we're going to throw you to the wolves, and good luck. Everybody rose to the occasion. They did really well. Some people took to it more than others, but everybody did an amazing job. And we had to do that because I couldn't go ask I need another $100,000 or $500,000 to do a virtual event when I'm not doing my physical event. That wasn't going to happen at Viacom CBS, who's our corporate owner.
Yeah. I
was really proud of everybody stepping up and being able to actually learn how to do all of these things.
And did you find that pretty easy for them? Was it hard for them?
Change is tough for everybody.
Yeah.
I think the team did a great job of learning, but there were definitely road bumps, speed bumps, whatever, bumps in the road that we had to overcome, but it was doable. And the great thing that we started to think about was, and when I started putting it in the context of our physical event, I should have done this to begin with, but it's this piece of software that we're using to produce this is like our big panel discussions. This is our 300 class room at the Anaheim Convention Center. Whereas this thing we're doing over here is kind of more like the stage shows that we put on in the arena. And then this other thing over here is like our meet and greets. And this other thing over here is like our smaller creator chat, more intimate discussions. So taking each of the technologies that we use and the way we were doing it and putting in the context of what the team already knew, I should have done that from the beginning. It took me a few weeks to realize that was actually probably the smart way to lay it out.
Can you share some of the engaging technologies that you used other than the first one you mentioned?
Yeah, so Chatalize I talked about. We used Icebreaker as a way to do social networking or networking in a digital space where people could get together. And I actually just found another cool piece of software that I really want to try called Toucan, like the bird, that I think might even be a little bit better than that for some things. We used Maestro, as I said, as our presentation layer so that we could actually create an environment where people could watch the conversations, participate in the Q&As and do that. We used Stage 10 to produce the conversations. We used a piece of software, a cloud community builder called Discord that allowed us to create a server where people could go and connect with each other in text chats and voice chats. And it actually came out of gaming, but it allowed us to move people from our formal sessions over there to continue the discussion with the speakers, almost Reddit style a little bit, but a private Reddit. And we also were able to do more intimate AMAs and chats there as well. So all of these actually allowed us to explore the boundaries of connecting people digitally in ways that emulated some of what they might be able to do in a real event, but weren't actually just copying what they could do in a real event.
So do you have people explore for you, or how do you find this stuff? A lot of times people said, I want it all on the platform and blah, blah, blah.
We went out and surveyed and looked at all the stuff, and we talked to a lot of vendors and looked at it. I got one of the folks on our team actually led that. 2 of them went out and talked to everybody and picked our first set of stuff we wanted to use, which we refined over time.
Yeah.
As it turns out, one of the nice parts about being part of a big media company like Viacom CBS is there's actually a video streaming infrastructure that the company had already built for things like CBS All Access and Big Brother and the Super Bowl. And so there, that whole like intermediate layer between we produced a Zoom conversation and we want to put it out on Maestro so everyone can see it and comment on it, interact with it. We could live stream that using this Viacom CBS bulletproof technology that turned out to work really well. So in that sense, we were lucky that existed, but we had to find it. And once we did, it worked out really well. And it also helps, by the way, we didn't have it. And with my background in geek media, and I was a programmer back in the dim, dark recesses of my past, and I'd reviewed a bunch of technology 10 years ago that relates to what we're doing. I sort of jumped in as the technical CTO of a lot of this stuff too, which was kind of fun. It was a good use of my time. And I also got a lot of enjoyment out of it. But we all jumped in to stretch ourselves.
And how do you know when something doesn't work?
The audience tells you.
And so you just look at numbers.
You look at numbers, you talk to people. Like the Discord thing we did, it's great for a bunch of our audience. We're still trying to figure out how to get it to appeal to our industry side. We may not, but we look at things, we look at numbers, like that's not working, let's change it up. And again, there's no roadmap to what we're doing.
Yeah.
There still isn't. Like the things that we did in June, whether it's Zoom or things like that, there's so much fatigue out there right now that just doing something like that is not going to be adopted at the same level. And so many people jumped into virtual events that it feels like there is a virtual event you could go to every hour of the day. And so how do you continue to reinvent yourself that way? We're looking on the industry side about thinking like, okay, so we put these sessions out there and it's great and the industry loves them, but are there better ways to do it? Are there better ways to take themes and ideas and things that people are concerned about, and whether we theme up a month or we theme up a day or we theme up a week, how do we pull that together in a thread that, and someone on the industry side can say, I will set aside time for this. So again, I don't have a lot of great answers.
But you as a magazine editor, it seems like the through line is the thinking about the content. I mean, and the editorial skills. A lot of times, remember when the magazine companies we're not spending all this money on editorial, let's just go do an event.
Yeah.
And the events were just, people didn't care about the content that much. It seems like now we're transitioning back to everyone wants to think, 365 days a year, how do we serve them? And as opposed to one event. And it seems like we're moving backwards into just a whole different way of thinking about our customer and adding all the costs on it that we took out when getting rid of the editorial people.
I think also there's a lot of events in this. Events are communities.
Yeah.
And the really powerful ones are where you look forward to going back every year and seeing the same people that you see there every year, and then the new people that you're going to meet there. But it's the tragic part of events is you bring the community together for a moment in time, and then they all scatter to the winds for the rest of the year. And so how do you at least engage people and keep that community going? Well, what's different now than 20 years ago is we have a lot of tools to help do that. Now, again, to your point, we still have to create content and do things that will make them want to engage.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot more ways to experiment now than I think 15 or 20 years ago.
I always use the analogy of summer camp, that you create this great experience, and then the great summer camp marketers of the 50s and 60s would go to the people's homes and gather neighborhoods together and do it was really hard, but it feels like that's what you created, is like this whole, I want to go and I want to see people during the year.
Exactly. And I want to have that. I want to come back together. Think about summer camp. Your good friends at summer camp, you probably corresponded with some of them throughout the year.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wrote them letters and put stamps on.
Oh my God, stamps. I don't know where you get stamps.
Stamps.com. Come on.
Oh, okay. You have to figure out how to put them on. Claire?
Yeah, but I think what you guys did that was really interesting that a lot of other big conventions have not done is stretch it out over a whole summer. And now you've recently announced that you're going to be doing kind of year-round virtual programming, correct? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. After we finished in mid-September, we were like, this really worked. Let's keep a lot of it going. And so we are continuing to do a lot less, more one thing a week for our fans, one thing a week for the creators, and a couple times a month with industry, and really trying to tweak around what people will like now. Look, our fans, our teen audience, they're back in school, and school now is 7 Zoom calls a day. So how do we come up with something that is interesting and valuable for them that we can keep doing every week and make it special enough that they'll want to be a part of it? So one of the things we did, which we're just actually finishing up now, is The meet and greets were really fun and enjoyable. And so we're doing 12 days of meet and greets in December. 12 days of Christmas, 12 days of meet and greets. And that's been great. And again, on the industry, we continue to refine what we're doing and bring things in. I just did a fun roundtable, looking back, looking forward yesterday live. That was a format we hadn't necessarily done before, but we might want to keep leaning into, but we'll look at the numbers there. But again, these are all things that we want to keep doing to engage our audience, to let them know we're still here.
Are you a personality of the organization, or are you behind the scenes? Are you like up front? And the question is, for others that are listening, is it important to have somebody that is kind of the orchestra leader of an event, or do you just let everybody do their own thing?
Well, so the event started with Hank and John Green, as they were the hosts of the event, right? And they still are. Hank's still a big part of the event. And when I started working at VidCon in 2014, I came in to run the industry track and to build the industry track up, because I had just recently built and sold a big online video network to Discovery Channel and was there for a couple of years. And I was hosting the industry track. And as I took over the whole event, Hank and John were the faces of the event. I am there a little bit here and there, and I come in and moderate some of the industry stuff, but I don't want to be the face of the whole event. I think you need to lean into what you're good at. So David, you're doing these podcasts and it's amazing, and that's great. But it's not like all of BizBash, even though like you said, you sold all of BizBash, is you.
Right.
So I think you need to let the right people come to the fore. I do think as you do things on a daily or a weekly basis, and we didn't really have this, something to think about, do we get a host of most of our community sessions? I'm not sure we want to do that, but I don't know. I can't say yes or no.
I'm trying to figure out for other event organizers, whether it's technical or whether it's you're adding that humanity to it. A lot of people think a lot of people in big companies design everything by an Excel spreadsheet. And how much of the humanity piece do you need to keep in events to keep them feeling like the Maya Angelou piece, where you have a feeling towards it?
Oh, I think you need that. You need that humanity piece, whether it's you or somebody else, or it's a group that you work with. You have to have, you've got to reach both the head and the heart. And I think there are people that can help you do that. There are causes that you can bring in that can help you do that, that will allow you to connect. Because in the end, we all want to connect with other people, and having a host of an event in some way, or a face of the event, or multiple faces, gives you people you can connect with.
But is that necessary? Is it 100% necessary? Or do you think that, I know that in every case you can do something different, but I'm sure in a really boring sort of technical thing, maybe you don't, but maybe you do. You were at these PC magazines.
PC Week. Yeah. At PC Week, we had a mascot that was the rumor mascot, Spencer the cat. And so he was our stake in the ground around, you want to know what was going on? Spencer always knew all the rumors. And we would do parties at events where, Spencer party. And they were the most desired parties to go to at Comdex, if you remember Comdex, Dealers Expo. It was actually when I first started working at PC Week. That's where I met Bill Gates when he was arguing with one of my new team members, and I had to separate them. But that was the sort of thing that happened there. Yeah, and I remember even geeky conferences, we would do microprocessor forum with Michael Slater, but Michael Slater was the face of it, and you wanted to go to that. The demo conference was Chris Shipley, and it was Stuart Alsop and then David Corsi, and you wanted to go because they were the hosts, and you knew that you trusted that they would show you and bring you interesting conversations and things. And yeah, a name's a name. Again, that editor-in-chief who writes the column is an important piece of magazines, but I think also events. Now, I don't know. I can't paint a brush and say everyone needs one, but I do think that there's value in that.
Bring it back to the whole reason for the success of the conferences is influencers are really, everyone's an editor. You're making it on a micro level for each audience that are bigger than the whole thing in many cases.
Everyone's a creator at VidCon. Even the fans who come in, they've all got their phones and they're taking selfies. And in 2019, it was amazing because, and we had been bringing TikTok in and Musical.ly before that, but you would walk around the convention center and there were groups of people getting together who knew each other or didn't know each other. They're all making TikToks. But the important part about what we celebrate and the creators who didn't need a gatekeeper to put them in front of an audience, but they built their audience. They woke up one day and said, I have no fans, no followers, no friends. I'm going to start a channel on YouTube. And they've got millions of subscribers on YouTube. Or I have no one knows me on TikTok, but I'm going to put a video up there. And now they've got tens of millions of people following them on TikTok. Is they did it themselves. And that connection that the fans and the audience and the community has with the creator is very much of a friend-to-friend thing. Back in my Revision 3 days of the network that I ran, one of our fans said, it's not a fan base, it's a friend base. And that, because of the way that you communicate with online video to the people that you're talking to, the impression for the audience member is that they're having a one-on-one conversation with you. It's a very intimate connection that they have with you. And when fans connect with their favorite creators, it's almost like from the fan base, it's two friends coming together to say hi, even though one of them has never met the other really before. And because we celebrate all of that through, it creates that connection that you don't get with just a movie star or a news anchor. It's really an intimate personal friendship experience. And that's where media is going in many ways.
So I want to ask you, this is not controversial, but I've been studying YouTube stars they've been filling up stadiums, at least they were in the old days. And then you see a Donald Trump rally is the same exact thing. It's how much intimacy is part of this whole thing now. The idea of knowing everything about everybody to create that friendship layer, because more about, you may disagree or hate Donald Trump, but you certainly know everything you want to know about him. And the same thing with your YouTube stars, and I guess with your creators. So this intimacy piece is critical, it seems like, in today's world.
Yeah, it's intimacy, and there's like the most overused word in the world of online video right now, authenticity, but it still is important because you are yourself. Mm-hmm. When I think about, and I've worked in television, and a lot of the television people that I've worked with, they're afraid of their audience. They put teleprompters and agents and managers and walls and barriers between them and their audience. I mean, have you ever been to Rockefeller Center and seen the Today Show being recorded?
Oh yeah.
You know, the only one who really goes out in the audience to talk to people is Weatherman, what's his name? Al Roker. It's Al Roker, and everybody else is behind the glass. They don't want to talk to their audience. They don't want to see them. They're scared of them. Whereas the online video creators, they know that the people that put them in those positions were the fans. And so Phil DeFranco, when somebody would walk up to him, I used to work with Phil at my old company. When somebody on the street would walk up to Phil, he'd stop and talk with them. And he would share really valuable moments with anybody who came up to him because he realized that he was nothing without them. And that's a very different type of media star. So when they get up on those big stages and are talking, there still is a sense of intimacy that the best ones do that they want to create by opening up a side of themselves and showing their vulnerable side, showing what they do. And it's also something I think that Donald Trump did a good job of connecting to a wide swath of people by being really open about so many things. You can lambaste him for his late night Twitter rants, but has there ever been a public figure like that who is that open about what they were thinking and feeling at any one time?
Well, growing up in New York, I'm sure you saw that. You go to a conference that he speaks at. There's no difference then than there is now. He was always at the how do you make $1 million in real estate conference?
Exactly.
No difference whatsoever in terms of, but is that the model that works, or is it?
It's a different model for everybody, I think, and what you're looking for. Some people will be naturally attracted to it. Let me look at Gary Vaynerchuk, another good example of somebody who's done a really good job of defining himself, defining who he is and what he is, and then defining a way to communicate with the audiences and building a great following. And it's not for everybody, but it is for a lot of people. And then you look at somebody like, Liza Koshy, or who's a great YouTube star, has a very different relationship with her audience. Rhett and Link, amazing. They do big shows. They have a very different relationship with what they do.
And now a quick word from our sponsor, Leo Events. Despite the disruption, the best brands carry on. And for now, the destination is digital. Driven by purpose, platform, and people, let the team at Leo Events deliver impactful, virtual moments for your audience. Visit leoevents.com today to discover Leo's virtual capabilities and read case studies from recent programs.
In this interview with Eastworks the other day, the person was talking about the difference between the millennials and the Gen Zs. And she was saying that the millennials support teams. the Gen Zs support individual players. Are you
Yep.
seeing that at all in, I guess, so YouTube stars and video stars are individuals. So
I'm going to turn that one around for you, because on the latest trends we're looking at in online video, we'll be leaning into next year are the houses. So the Hype House, there are all these houses of TikTok creators that have gotten together and banded together to form groups that are now producing content and are becoming famous as groups. And so we're seeing it on Roblox, like with the crew, and we're seeing it with the Hype House, and we're seeing it with a bunch of others. And that's really interesting. So I'm not disputing your theory, but I am saying that there are definitely groups of creators coming together to form and work together to build their celebrities. But individuals start to peel off those groups as they get bigger and go off and do their own thing.
you Dinah Ross.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say that's interesting. I heard something a couple of years ago saying Gen Z tends to trust influencers more in terms of marketing and buying products from them because they don't feel like they're as polished as like a big A-list celebrity. I think it's that level of authenticity, and it feels like it's going to be more important than ever.
Yeah, actually, if I could riff on that just for a sec, because I think it's super interesting. The last 10 months have accelerated the power of the creator. And so I think you see this in a number of different ways, but every creator who's over a certain level of fans and followers is rapidly becoming a direct-to-consumer brand. 6 or 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, creators would shill for brands. So they'd go do stuff for Taco Bell, they'd do stuff for various brands. Now they're building their own brands. Patrick Starr has his own lineup of makeup and other accessories that not just rolling out in the US, rolling out in Asia and around the world. So that the power is rapidly shifting to creators from media companies. And just look at what Dave Chappelle did at Netflix recently for another example of that in traditional media.
So your VidCon is the fuel for teaching people to do this in many cases.
We teach them to do it. We celebrate the fact that it's happening. We help people discover new things. We help people figure out how to build businesses around it. This new world of community-led media where gatekeepers are not involved, and at some level they do eventually, but where you can build it yourself anywhere in the world, that's what we try and mirror, celebrate, and push forward where we can.
And so are there any competitors to VidCon, or is it people nipping at the heels, or is it?
There are others out there that are doing some similar things in some ways, but nobody does everything the way we do it. All three elements of it. There are people that do things for creators. There are people that do things for fans. There are people that do B2B conferences. We're really the only one that ties that together and has become the place where the creators, the industry, and the fans come together every year. And we do it in the US, but we're also doing events around the world. So we'll have 4 or 5 different events globally in 2021 and more to come in 2022.
What is your sense of what's going to happen with hybrid events?
I think it's table stakes. I don't think you can have an event going forward without a digital equivalent. And I say equivalent, not replica, but we're in a space now where we've created an expectation that something like this will happen. And we also know that for reasons of money, health, or time and distance, people won't be able to attend. And being able to have a way for them to connect and be part of that is super important. And then as you get younger, the Gen Z very much, and whatever comes after Gen Z, the lines between physical and virtual are blurring. And so that URL, IRL line doesn't really exist for them in many ways anymore. And you need to be able to engage people on both sides of it, because they want to come together both in the physical and the virtual realm and connect together that way.
So I just interviewed GES the other day. They do Freeman GES, and they're talking about how do you break the fifth wall. And the fifth wall is connecting the virtual audience and the real audience. And what they're going to do is and this is probably not for you, this is probably so elementary for you guys, but it's, you walk into a room and you see a whole bunch of iPads and you pick up a partner and you will go do the show with the partner and you get to know, it's like a buddy type of thing. So that's some of the trade show thinking, but it's obviously not as sophisticated as what you guys would do.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Like there's a lot of new technologies that I think, whether it's AR, VR, telepresence, the ability through something like 5G to get low latency connections where you can actually have a connection with somebody who's not physically next to you and have it feel like you're having a real connection. I think we're going to be in a great age of experimentation. There are a lot of startups that have been forming and are out there. It's a great time to be BizBash. because you guys can cover all this stuff. We're all looking for help, and we're all looking for what the next big thing is. And yeah.
So the Magic Leap is having failure, it's controversial right now, but the idea of digitizing a room is interesting. And does that have any life, or is that kind of like Betamax?
So I think, this is something that I think I've seen with every digital transition. It's what I call sort of the cowpath thing, left over from spending all this time in Vermont. Whereas, you know how when you're in a field and you have the cows here and you have their food here, and the cows just beat a path to their food, and they basically wear the grass away. Yeah. And then if you move their food over here, they still go over here and then here. They don't do the diagonal. And I think we always cowpath the analog into digital first. So the idea that we can take a meeting room or an expo floor, and we're just going to create a digital version of it, and you'll walk around in it with your little avatar, that's a cowpath. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to tell you what it means to go on a diagonal when you think about events digitally. But I will tell you what, at least in my experience, it is not doing a faithful replication of the analog experience in a digital environment. I think there's a lot of experimentation that's going to happen. I spent some time with Complex Land last week, and I really like a lot of the things that they were doing and trying to reimagine what that is. There wasn't a physical digital coming together. I've seen a lot of people are doing similar interesting things, like remember Second Life, the virtual experience. They've spun off a version of Second Life for events that I had a demo of, and I'm like, some of this I really like. So that's why I said it's a great time of experimentation. The companies that are going to lead this world they're being developed now. They're early, they're raising seed funding. They are out there. I just can't tell you who they are. We got to keep looking and testing and trying and seeing what the audience wants.
Is the Second Life thing for real? They're new. It's
very interesting what they're doing, and it's like I said, they took the Second Life technology, and they went out around that. But there's some interesting stuff out there.
So, are you at VidCon promoting all of those new services? Is that part of your mission there, or is it tangential?
Oh, you mean the new event services we were talking about?
Well, the whole idea of looking at these different platforms and things like that, because the creators are looking for things. Are they doing their own virtual events too, or no?
Yeah, where there's overlap, we will, certainly talk about it. But you're probably not gonna see an event technology platform at VidCon.
Yeah.
But what you will see are things like Stage 10 that we use to produce this stuff there. You may see somebody like Maestro that allows you to build community around it. Certainly Discord has been a supporter of VidCon, and I hope will continue to be, where you can build these private communities. So I think some of it, but definitely not all of it.
I want to ask you a question on the aesthetics. I was at the Teen Vogue Summit. I was the oldest person there for a while.
Sounds like fun. I had friends of mine who worked there, so yeah.
Yeah, I love the people that work on it. But what is the aesthetic for this next generation? Is it very fancy carpeting and like everything buttoned up, or is it just pretty, not so formal? How do you create an aesthetic for this audience now?
I think it's get me quickly to what's important to me.
Don't care about the staging look and feel. I
think some of that is important. Create an environment that feels
where do you spend the money? Where does the next generation of event organizers spend their money?
I personally think you spend it on bringing the right creators, influencers, community touch points together, build an environment where they can connect with each other, and certainly make it a safe space. You have to that safe both physically and from diseases, but create an environment where the audience can connect with each other and build that out, and then make sure you've got those anchors, touchstones, points that they want to come be a part of. So you look at something like, even think about what people like the Museum of Ice Cream, or Friends, the event stuff going around Friends, where you can come and be in the apartment and do those things. Get me to that experience that touches me, that I can share with my friends, rather than necessarily building an amazing experience. Have you ever been to the Singapore airport?
No.
So they built this thing in the Singapore airport, which is amazing. It's like this huge fountain, and it's 5 stories, and it's big biodome. I love that that's an airport. Super expensive. I don't think we need to replicate that in the events that we do. Unless you're charging $10,000 for the event, then maybe you need some of that.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Claire, what do you have on our planned list?
Yeah. Love to know anything you can share about 2021 VidCon. Do you have any solid plans yet? Are you hoping to actually physically be in Anaheim?
Yeah, right now we're planning our slate of events physically, and Anaheim in July, we're working on it. Obviously, we are going to react to the world on where it goes, and we're going to build a super safe event. And if it's not safe, we won't do it, because we're not going to put our attendees, our creators, or our employees in harm's way. But we do think that the second half of the year is going to be a great time for events globally. We are deep into planning Abu Dhabi in December, which Abu Dhabi just opened up. So they've publicly said, we're open for business, come on in. So we really think that's going to be a great event. We're doing Singapore and Asia in Singapore in November. That's going to be a great event. And we're planning Mexico, we're planning Brazil, and who knows, there may be some others there as well. So we're cautiously optimistic, planning it out, but we're also going to react intelligently to the way the world develops, because nobody has any answers. How quickly is that vaccine going to come out? I don't know.
Are you seeing, though, based on those answers, a homogenous world among the next generation? In terms of, is it the same in all these different markets, or is it completely different? Or is there a through line? Is there something that's connecting the world that you see?
So I think the thing that connects the world is that creativity is evenly distributed everywhere. And that you can be in Kuala Lumpur, you can be in the backwoods of Australia, or I guess it's not the woods, it's more of
whatever,
the desert or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can build an audience. And you can connect. You don't have to go to London or New York or Sydney or Hollywood to do media and to connect with people.
But when you do connect them, is it becoming homogeneous? Like in terms of everybody is thinking the same, like there's, instead of having a trend in Idaho and one in New York, it's all merging together? Do we think?
No, it is still very much regional differences. When we started doing VidCon around the world, we weren't going to do VidCon in Mexico City. We're doing VidCon Mexico City. We're not going to do VidCon in Sao Paulo. We're doing VidCon Sao Paulo. And take a look like Brazil, for example. The creators that they want to talk to and the people that are important to them are not the same as the ones in the US or in Australia or in Spain. Same thing goes with France, right? If you want to do an event in France, you have French creators, and what's important to them is different. If you want to do an event in KL, in Indonesia, you're going to want Indonesian creators. Now, there may be a few that have touchstones. Like, for example, there's BB Kai in India, who is very relevant to a lot of parts of the world. But most of the people in some of these areas, they're looking for creators that are local to them, that speak their language. And just because somebody feels like a global presence, it's very difficult to get it everywhere.
Breaking through is tough. Are there many global people that
you look at some of the K-pop stars out of Korea, they have a global presence, but I bet if you walked around the United States and 9 out of every 10 people you talk to was like, what?
Yeah,
K-pop? Exactly. So yeah, you can have a global presence, but it's because culture's distributed around the world now in so many different ways.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Claire, any final questions? I know this has been wild. I've loved this conversation.
It's
yeah,
super
this
fun.
is so interesting.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm sorry for interrupting Claire. My thing is to get all of the people that do these industrial trade shows to listen to you and rethink how they do things, because it's still not that different. Yeah. You know, and because they think it's so hard to change, but it's an attitude about changing it more than anything else.
Yeah, it's just the old pipes and drapes and finger foods and rounds. You can do more.
I want to see how you would recreate the cement show.
Okay, I will tell you that out there somewhere is a cement influencer, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, let's take a plumbing show. Roger Wakefield has, 50,000, 100,000 followers on YouTube and is an amazing plumber. And he's going to teach you how to fix your toilet. Let me tell you, when the American Association of Plumbers get together for the annual event, he should be the keynote.
Yeah, you got it.
That's the first. So there you go.
Okay, great. Okay.
I don't know who the concrete version of Roger is.
It's a 1 million square foot show, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I've been to these shows and seen them. But how do you think about who's going to be relevant for not just the 40 and 50-year-olds who come to the show, but the 20-year-olds who are coming to the show and the 30-year-olds?
Yeah.
What's your next act in terms of future ambition? I know that you're totally here in this particular job, but do you have any sort of ambitions for reinventing something?
I want to go find that concrete influencer and reinvent it. No, I look, I'm having a blast doing this. I think we've only just begun. As I said, creativity is evenly distributed around the world. When I took over VidCon, when Hank and John brought me in to run it and develop it, I said, my goal is to have a VidCon on every continent in the world, except Antarctica, until we can teach them how to use cameras, penguins. And we're getting there. But I just think that this world of community-led media can be so healthy and so awesome. And you look at TikTok and Pinterest and Roblox that are very positive environments. How do we bring that around the world? And how do we make it so that anywhere you are in the world, if you want to reach an audience and you want to connect with other people like you and do that through video cameras and new forms of media, I want to help make that happen.
Okay, so the last question is, how do people connect with VidCon and you?
So I'm just Jim at vidcon.com.
Okay.
Easy enough.
Okay.
And you can go to vidcon.com and look at what we're doing. But obviously, I love to talk about this stuff. So anybody wants to chat about it, let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on.